Great leaders are not always at the center. Great leaders mostly come in small towns where they have to sacrifice. To the proud teachers and even proud parents, mayong hapon sa ating lahat. So, makaluluya ang init, pero makahatag kusog na tapos na kamo after 4 years. Before ko maghambal sa akong speech, I'd like to request all of the parents, titas, yayas, lolo, lolas to please stand up. My dear graduates, the biggest honor of today is not only because you will achieve a certificate in your name, but because all of these people standing for you have worked hard, sacrificed everything that they have in order for you to achieve this certificate. And we thank you around with us. Thank you din sa inyo, sa inyo to sa petition, sa inyo kabataan. My dear graduates, we live in a time that is very interesting. We live in a time where everything is changing very fast. And you might be thinking, some of you are wondering, ano abot next? Some of you might already know what they want. They want to be a lawyer, they want to be an engineer. And some of you are just looking for ways to help the family after the trip. And I want you to know that it is perfectly okay. But there's one major thing that you have to take note of. The current employment mix normally has already shifted. A lot of major companies, including Meta, has already laid off 16,000 workers because of changing times. A lot of students before who graduated have now shifted to the gig economy or the no 8 to 5 economy because that is where the new work environment is. How does that help us? It doesn't really. Why? Because most people, these global changes really clashes with all already existing problems in the Philippines. Unemployment, underemployment, mismatch of jobs, lack of proper jobs. And this is where reality would be apart. I'm telling you this because every generation inherits an imperfect system. But the key there is how we deal with it and what we do about it. And I'm very proud to say that this generation is very different from ours. You ask the hard questions. You question norms. But more importantly, in terms of learning, you're quite faster than us. And it is for those traits that I believe that it might not be the conventional thing that we always seek in our generation, but this generation is bound for greatness. Just a little thing about me, because I was once like in second year. Before I graduated, I was already a working student, and my first job was an administrative assistant. I used to earn 12,000 pesos, and I thought 12,000 was more than enough in 2008. But when the bills came, the expenses for food came, the cleaning expenses had to be shouldered by me, came, 12,000 wasn't enough. And you need to understand that because sometimes life will always come with challenges. And it can't let that define my graduates. The world will not always give everything that we want on a silver platter. It will not always give a speech such as this. But what I do understand with my 30 years of being in this world is that life will give you small tasks. And people will try to see what will you do for that small task. And they will observe how much potential we will have because after those small, perceived to be minor cracks. What I'm saying is simple. There is an old truth that we must understand. And that old truth is life doesn't begin with by death. Life simply begins and starts. And you don't have to have everything perfect on your first job, perfect on your first career, perfect on your first family. Because life is a continuum. It always changes. And it will always matter on how we act. This is a very big privilege for me, not just because as a counselor, but also because it is true. Our family is living in Sakyan before, your neighbor, and one of my father's closest friends comes from here. My grandfather saw the connection. It was Speaker Connect Villarreal. Who remembers Speaker Connect Villarreal? Back then, it is something that no one has to remember. Because at one point in time, a major leader, a very respected leader of this country, was raised and came from this small town. You know, tayo kasi po was billion with grandkids. And you know, that's the retails of your thing matters to me, but it matters more to you. What am I saying? Great leaders are not always at the center. Great leaders mostly come in small towns where they have a sacrifice, where you understand that humanity is more important than what other people perceive. That we see or do two important things for the family because they know at kung wala kasang pamilya at komunidad na tikpong sa ilaw, wala sila kakagawa kung ganyan sila. But for deeper truth comes with it. Hambal nila kung papasin mo ka, aswang. Hambal lang kung talakapis ka, kung hindi ka. Hambal nila kung talakapis ka, wala magbabagan. But I always see about that with this simple thing. How far to go in life is not eternal, but where we go from. And in dear guardians, we have to remember that chip on your shoulder, because a chip on your shoulder is sometimes an advantage. It is not enough that you earn a living, but it is also important that you do service to the community. Because the future of Capiz is not the bigger suddenly. We cannot change the question on new governance. We cannot question the change in terms of good institutions, and we cannot bring back when once the people needed. It does not take one president, it does not take one senator, it does not take one congressman, but it takes a whole generation of really saying that as citizens, we must develop. And today, the challenge for you is not just on what titles you will hold the position, but what you also do to the community. And being a biased person, I want to pose a question for you all. Ano ang inyong libra para sa Capiz na mahambal natin na hindi na itakaroon ka disenyo but because of FB2, we will make others proud of Capiz as well. Kanina, I was just struck na wala ka nato na dumduman si Speaker Connect. Because for us to remember and for us to push further, we must never forget our history and we must always raise the bar in terms of performance and in terms of service. So my dear graduates, today I will not ask you to do big things, but I will simply ask you to start. And when you start, you must never forget that you came from a small town that has been shaped by its people, a small town where everyone melts each other, and a small town where great leaders come from. To batch 2026, congratulations, and do your best because this country needs you more than ever. Wala nang minsan sa Kenneth, palungayan mga kapsul, and kita ka